I actually said it wasn't for me because it wasn't what I expected. Um, it was hard. But I'm a kind of guy that likes a challenge anyways, right? But yeah, it was hard. It wasn't for me, I thought, but ended up being the right choice to stay in it.
Welcome to All Things Wood Floor, brought to you by Wood Floor Business. I am your host, Steve Diggins, from Wood Pro and Wood Floor Business Magazine. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably one of the best in the industry, so welcome aboard. Today, 2022 Ultimate Wood Floor Guy recipient, Clinton Duff of Woodchuck Floors, Toronto, Canada. This special episode, Clinton shares with us the inside scoop about the Canadian market. He talks about his 40 years in the business since he's left Jamaica. Clinton and I talk shop and literally all things wood floor. The man is the pro's pro, so kick back and enjoy as Wood Floor Business welcomes Clinton Duff, Woodchuck Floors, Toronto, Canada. Floor pros around the world, say it with me, you know it's coming. Let's get to it. Clinton Duff, Woodchuck Flooring, Toronto, Canada. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How you doing there,
Doing
Steve?
good. Welcome to All Things Wood Floor. Congratulations. Good for you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about Woodchuck? Because I know we spoke with Tim on one of the podcasts. We had a really good time. And tell me all about what you do there and you know what Woodchuck Flooring is all about in Toronto.
Woodchuck Flooring is about we're a supplier. We also do servicing, and here in Toronto, it's a pretty big deal because flooring, believe it or not, is a top priority amongst a lot of home builders.
Sure.
So it's good. It's good business here.
You guys break it down. Do you manufacture, and some people do everything: install, supply, sand, finish. Which ones do you do? Which ones do you not do?
Okay, so we don't manufacture. We supply. We do the install, finish. Myself personally, I run the service department. So I'm in charge of a bunch of guys who do the actual work. I myself used to do the work. I still do, but for the most part, we have a bunch of crews.
Okay, and would you be like a shop foreman or a field supervisor?
Shop foreman and field supervisor. I do it. I'm here and I'm there depending on what the situation is.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I tend to be more on the road and tend to the clients out there.
So you used to do flooring, and like most of us, now you're doing flooring still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's been a long time, but everything kind of collates with each other.
Sure.
For me, I started off in installing, sanding, finishing, and now I'm in management. So from one aspect to another is where I'm at.
You have a cool little affect there. What is that accent?
I was born in Jamaica.
Okay.
Came to Canada probably, 1975, a very long time ago, and went to school here. But I still have a bit of an accent. Not very many people can recognize it, but it's there. My parents came because they had opportunities, right? So my mom being a nurse and my dad being in a bit of the construction field himself,
Yep.
there was opportunities for them to grow here. So they immigrated, and I came along and went to school.
And then how did that become flooring? I assume you didn't come here to get into flooring.
No, not at all. Not at all. It wasn't in the plan at all. I got into it when my neighbor who had his own flooring business, and he needed some help. And I was working part-time while I was going to high school. And he just came to me and said, "Stop doing this restaurant stuff. I got something for you." And the rest is history.
I know, right? What was the first thing they gave you? They didn't stick you with the edger, right? They gave you
Yes,
something.
he did. He stuck me with the edger.
Here, sharpen this blade.
No, he actually dropped me off at a job site. It was a front entrance way, I remember, and it was parquet flooring, and they had a bit of linoleum glued on it, and
Right.
gave me some 16 grit paper, showed me how to hold the edger, and said, "Go to town."
So you got started in, interesting too, on your first day and et cetera. good, indifferent, easy? Did you say this is not for me, or what was the deal right from the get-go?
I actually said it wasn't for me because it wasn't what I expected. It was hard, but I'm a kind of guy that likes a challenge anyways, right? But yeah, it was hard. It wasn't for me, I thought, but ended up being the right choice to stay in it, right?
Well, there's a lot of physicality, right? First of all, if you're installing, not just swinging a hammer and bending over a saw and kneeling and all this other stuff, but moving the bundles from room to room, unloading a truck of bundles of flooring, edging, bent over with your back for an hour, and there's a lot involved, clearly. You have to be in a certain physical condition to do this type of work, right?
100%. Yeah, I'm in. It's all physical. Like I have a hard time taking vacation, taking time off. I find if I'm off for a long period of time, I tend to seize up. Right?
That's what people say. Exactly.
Yeah, I seize up, so I just want to keep going, right?
What do you have a preference of sanding, finishing, installing, refinishing?
I've come to realize that I like sanding and refinishing. That aspect of it is, I feel like not anybody, but the majority of the guys can bang a floor in, but to stain and finish a floor it's an art.
Yes,
right? It's completely different.
Well, yeah, it's art and chemistry.
Yeah,
and I hear throughout the industry that you are one of the color guys. Like you're a stain expert.
Well, I've mixed a few colors in my time, and I like to match. I'm doing one this Thursday. I'm gonna start one where somebody else had stained the floor, and the client actually has two different colors in her house that she didn't realize. She has a medium brown on the stairs, and the first part of the flooring seemed to have been mixed. And when I tested it, and I went there and did some samples myself. I've come to the conclusion that the color that's there is mixed with a medium brown and a coffee brown.
Oh,
so yeah, so it's maybe they didn't have enough of each color. I don't know, but sometimes guys do stuff like that. So now I have to match the rest of the flooring to that.
Do you do sample boards that you just put it right out there in the field and sand here and there until you get what looks right on the floor?
No, I actually went to the house and sanded an area and brought a bunch of stains that I thought was going to be the color, and then I mixed them on site. Sure. And did swatches until I got to where I needed to be, and then we choose.
And do you do water popping, not water popping? Sometimes not. What's your preference?
I prefer to water pop my jobs because I feel like when I do that, the stain is more prominent. Right. It's not just on the surface of the floor. It doesn't look washed out.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's the market up in Canada right now? I could tell you in our area, it's been like 5 years of gray this, gray that, brown this, brown that. What do you guys have up there going on?
We've got a lot of pastels going and a lot of wide plank boards going down now. Mind you, like today alone, I had a few clients that came in that was looking for the traditional browns again. So I think we went through the pastel stage and now we're going back to the traditional.
Sure.
So that's my take on what I feel is happening.
Well, Toronto's fascinating because I think I stole it from Tim, but I think he said it's the third largest U.S. city.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever cross the border to do work, or is everything in Canada?
Everything is in Canada that we do. Yeah.
Gotcha. Is there anything different as far as species, or just?
Right now, I in Canada we do a lot of white oak, to be honest, and we're getting a lot of European white oak,
right? Which
is strange because we have a lot of red oak here through Quebec and like Manitoba, all those areas. But for the most part, the wider planks and stuff seems to be wanting to go with the white oak. People trying to get away from that pinkish look.
Sure.
Right, yeah.
We run into that. Do you run into a lot when you run into a house where there's like a install or a refinish and they add something and it's just two different species of wood?
Yes. I ran into one recently where they extended the front hallway, and the installer actually put in a red oak, and the original floor was white oak, and he actually toothed it in, so it just didn't go
It's a lot
right.
of
No
work to
matter
have
what
it
you
stand
do.
out like that. That must have
Oh,
popped.
it stood out. It stood out. Yeah.
Is there anything in your area people are shying away from? Like we don't see bamboo anymore. We don't see any laminates. We see a little bit more of the LVT and the SPCs and stuff. Is there stuff people are staying away from these days?
Believe it or not, we get people asking for the laminates, not the bamboos and stuff like that, but the laminates. We get people asking for it, but we prefer to educate them and let them know that the vinyls are the newer things. No, vinyls is going to replace the laminates because vinyl is reusable. You can if it gets wet, you pick it up, let it dry out, and put it back down. It's got more functions than the vinyl than the laminate, right? So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So you, with all your, let me think here. How long have you been with Woodchuck? 12, 13, 14? I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure.
I've been with them for 13 years now. But I actually, when I first started in the business, the guy that taught me, he actually bought his product from Woodchuck. So I was from day one. I've been going to Woodchuck and been involved with Woodchuck, which now is, like I said, I started that in 1986. So it's been a long journey being involved with Woodchuck flooring.
How long were you in the field before you wound up in the shop and kind of managing?
Even when I came to Woodchuck, I went in the field, and within the last, I'm going to say about 6 years now, Tim's asked me if I was interested in this position, and I gladly accepted.
What's the day like? How do you start crews off, or you're in the shop?
I start off in the shop in the morning. I get in here. I'm here by 7 o'clock. I open up the back of the shop, make sure that the guys can get whatever materials they need and equipment to get out. Usually by about 7:30, 8 o'clock, all the crews are out. And then my day starts with me going to job sites to do visits and making sure that the guys are on track and everything that we've discussed with clients is being done,
Sure.
right? That sort of stuff.
How many crews?
So right now we have 5 crews that we give work to that are out there doing work for us, and 3 of the crews just do straight install, and then the other 2 do install and sanding. And then, of course, there's myself who, if there's a small job, I like to jump on the machine every now and then and keep myself going.
Keep it honest.
Keep it honest. Yeah. Yeah.
Do they give you crap? They know. I listen. I'm with you. I get out there sometimes I don't want to, and I think, well, they're gonna think they've never seen me behind a machine. I'm just all talk. I like to get out there and get in the trenches too. And if
100%. 100%. I think my guys appreciate me more because I do everything they do. And when I speak to them, I don't tell them what to do. I ask them what if they would mind doing this for me, or that kind of approach. And then if sometimes I get to a job site, if I see the floor needs sweeping, I pick up a broom and I start sweeping it, and then they follow suit, right? So yeah, it works that way.
when you're on a job site, do they still ask you to sharpen the scrapers?
No, no, no shape. No, no, I won't do that. But
You
I
can
will.
do a
I
hundred
will. I will
podcasts.
go through
Everybody
the
will talk
photo.
about they're the best, sharpener guy in the world. And hey, if you know what you're doing, you should be able to do surgery with those things.
You see, some guys like there's a couple guys that they sharpen the scraper and I can't use it.
Right.
But
Thank
when
you.
when I sharpen it, I can use it.
What is this wiggle back and forth stuff? I'm like, you're putting all the pressure forward. Now the blade's dull, and you're bringing it back. There's got to be a little little something there. Let's give credit to the scraper world. It's a tricky little tool, but boy, is that thing! I've used it for everything.
I think it's my favorite tool.
Oh,
I
yes.
I must have 20 of them at home. because I always stick them in my pocket when I go to the job site, and I walk away with them. I must have 20 of them in my little garage at home.
Well, we did the podcast with the other ultimate flooring person, which is Liz Imlock, the floor gal, and she said clearly, like, she's proud of her collection and she's got one on her at all times. So listen, if you see her in an ATM, don't jump her from behind and say hello. It could get dangerous outside there. So when you're doing the work that you do in the field over the years, have you picked up any particular tricks of the trade or different techniques or things that you use or that you find that you try to impart on the other folks?
Like I've got guys who think that they don't ever really need to scrape the ends of the walls, and I tend to want to do that. It's going through the motions. I'm never gonna just omit something. I like to scrape the ends, scrape out the lines, then do my palm sanding and stuff like that. So I have a regiment that I like to practice because it works for me. Yes. Right. So I try to instill that in the guys. This works. So let's just do it this way. We don't want to reinvent it.
Well, I remember when I first got into it, and you learn from whoever, and then you either figure other things out for yourself or you learn from new people. Like, they used to say in all the seminars, either have you done this 20 years and you've learned something every day, or have you been doing the same thing for 20 years? I was in it for a while, edging and doing the field work, and then somebody said to me, I see your edger mark. I said, well, it is what it is. It'll disappear if I put a finish on it. And he said, I scrape everything. And he was right. It might be a little bit much, but it's there. And people expect today a much, much higher end finish with dust containment systems, all the little fine hand sanders that you're available to get, rotary machines. Grab the scraper and get it done. I think you're absolutely right. It's
just, don't even think about it. Just do it.
Yeah, and there's where you're water popping, because now you're inviting that outside field to look scraped and sketchy, and you still got to go over it with a screen. You still got to get into it with a little water pop to get. And by the way, what do you think you guys are doing for staining? We went in New England from doing everything we could for decades of talking people into a natural floor. I think the last decade has been nothing but mandatory stain on everything.
Yeah, stain is it. Majority of clients that I do, I'm going to say 80-85% want a stain of some color. Natural flooring is it's a thing of the past, unless it's like a white oak, wide plank white oak. Then they might go with a natural, but for the most part, anything else is stained.
There'll always be flooring, because in about 10, 15 years, somebody will move into that house and say, oh, it's always so dark in here. We need to lighten it up. And they'll strip all that out. And 25 years from now, they'll go back to the browns and the walnuts and the other things. Now, how long have you been in the industry completely? Were you in any of it before that, or it was just right out of the gate to woodchuck?
No, I was in it for a while. When like I said, the gentleman that taught me, I worked with him for about 3 or 4 years, and believe it or not, he was Greek, and he wanted me to go back to Greece with him to do some work, actually live there and do work. And I had just met my wife at the time, so no, that wasn't happening. Right? No. So I ended up starting my own business. Right, so I ran my own business for about 25 years.
Yeah, so you've been doing this like me. When did you get in? 86, 87?
86.
Yeah, I got in 87. You've been 40 years at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time. You can quit now.
I'm not ready. There's still some more of. I got some teaching to do out there. I've got a few guys that are I've actually taught that they need some advice and stuff every now and then, or just a little bit of push, a little bit of help, whatever. So I'm going to stick around for them,
They're probably going to need you. This is pretty brutal work considering people's options today. I travel to parts of the country where you can't find, a professional flooring person. There might be a jack of all trades. There's just aren't enough people to do it well, and then to train other people. And then those people that are in those markets charge astronomical prices that they deserve. But I'm surprised when I go places like down in Virginia or D.C. and you got you go into a house and somebody had their neighbor pick it up from Lowe's or Home Depot or someplace and throw something in, and and they're so thrilled, and you look at it and say, wow, this is one of the worst floors I've ever seen.
Happens all the time.
Right? And it keeps you in
Oh,
business.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Happens all the time. It's great. It's great that when they do that. Like I was in Home Depot once, and I'll give you an example. They were doing a little seminar on how to install the flooring, and the guy that was doing the seminar was doing it's like Stairway to Heaven. Every joint was exactly the same, like 3-4 inches, and it just went right across the floor.
All
And
the way to the other side of the room.
I had to point it out in front of all of the people sitting there watching. I'm like, you can't do that. And then I walked away.
I got my very first dance studio, and me and my business partner had been doing flooring, I don't know, maybe a year or two. And we started a line along this long wall, and we started making, we called them staggers, and people call them ladders or et cetera. Mm-hmm. Well, they were about, I'd say 6 to 12 inches apart. And we got this idea, once we got to the right side of the room, how many can we make in a row all the way until we have to put a board in? And we did this whole floor, never thought anything about it. We got done. The woman with the dance studio said, how did you do it? It's so beautiful. We love it. Well, we didn't realize it was maple. And when we finally started putting bundles down after that stupid row of ladders, all the maple was a dark brown in color. We left this big brown staircase right across the entire floor, and she thought we meant to do it. Note that day, we will never do that again. That was a dumb. And you know what? They get shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
So are there jobs in your area in your 40 years? Are there any few that stand out that were either or both super challenging and also maybe the more memorable?
Some of the memorable jobs that I've done are like I don't know if you know where, like, Casa Loma in Toronto here is a castle that was brought to Canada from England. I don't know when it was here, but it was long before me. But I ended up redoing the floors in there for woodchuck, and that's one of my most memorable places because it gets so much traction from people from all over the world coming to visit. It's a tourist destination, right? So places like that, being able to say to people, I worked on those floors there. That to me is it's amazing.
Well, but did Tim tell you that the Canadians brought that over? They stole that, right? They're still looking for that thing.
Well, it's right there.
Yeah, well, some of them. Well, how about everybody usually has some type of flooring nightmare? Did you ever have anything go particularly, crazy out of control?
Yeah, I've had some go crazy. A couple of years ago, we were on a job, and the homeowner had just changed the HVAC system, and what they did, well, it worked when we were there, but by the time we left, it wasn't working anymore. So it was just pumping hot air, and all around the vents, it was starting to gap, right? So we went back, the manufacturer went back, and we checked. They ended up changing the HVAC system 3 times in this house just to get it going, just to get it right. And it was a nightmare for us because it shrank all of our flooring. It was a nightmare.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
And where you are in Toronto, here in New England, we have swings. Like a couple days ago, it was really humid, really sticky. I know my garage floor is concrete; it was soaking wet for no reason. And today, I get out of work and it was 38 and freezingly dry cold. You guys have those swings too, where you are?
We have swings, but they're not that drastic. Okay. So I try to tell people to, educate them with relative humidity. That's a very important thing for us here is if you maintain your relative humidity that is suggested by your manufacturer, depending on the type of flooring you get, the species, the width, and, whether it's engineered or whether it's solid. That's very, very important. That's probably one of the most important aspects of putting in flooring in your home is to maintain that.
Oh, absolutely. I have test equipment when I go out to look at a site, and I was just looking at some of the newer meters, and one of the things we're thinking of as a distributor, we would make a note on an invoice or a sales slip like bad day for flooring. It's 80 something percent humidity. It's 98 degrees, and they're going to take it and install it within the next few hours. And we'd have to be careful because it wouldn't be months until somebody came back and said, "Hey, why'd you sell me this junk?" Well, the new meters, we were giving out meters for people to just take the job with them. The newer meters that are out by like Humidity Matters, we have a couple in the field right now. The installer can leave at the homeowner's house, especially if they feel that maybe the builder's pushing things a little bit. And we all know who usually does this. It's the builder or the contractor saying, "I got to get this done." Well, that thing, 2 or 3 of them read in my office. I can read them at any time all day long. Even if someone calls and says, "How we looking?" I can say, "Well, you're at 40% relative humidity and you're at 65 degrees, you're good." Or I can say, no, you are really heavy in there. And maybe even say the wood shouldn't be there. You're absolutely right. I think people tend to think that they can just throw a floor in and deal with the consequences later. And you know how difficult that's going to be.
That's not where I want to be. No.
Do you guys have, are you having in Canada the same thing we're having, just massive labor shortage? It seems like not only can we not get help, but the people that we can, you could pay them everything in the world. They're probably not going to hang in there. Yeah,
it's, I find that, and usually it's the guys that have a little bit of experience that don't want to stick around. The guys that I find will stick around are the guys with the least amount of experience. So I get to teach them from start, and then they start to see that they're developing something. And then if you have those guys and you treat them right, then they tend to stick around, right? And those are the guys I want.
Yeah,
right?
I think you're right. I think even in distribution, it's kind of two sides. I could have somebody that's super experienced jump right in and help us get rolling. Or I could have somebody that knows absolutely nothing, and we can kind of train them our way and educate them our way and get them to look at our techniques, or whether it's in the field or if you're, how to sell or what the technical aspects of a product are or what the best recommendation is for a customer. Do you guys turn to you? Do your guys say, do they set up every job and say, "Listen, here's what I got. Where should we start? How should we start?" Do they? I
usually walk them through it because I visit every job site before the guys go in, and I tend to wanna just get an idea myself of where I think we should be starting, whether we're starting off a nosing or we're starting off a wall, or I tend to want to start down the center of hallways and make sure that's my straight focal point coming in. I don't want to get to a hallway and find out that I'm crooked now because the hallway's crooked, or any of that. So I tend to want to start off from my front door coming in and work my way off of that.
Don't you typically find if you take a vantage line off the center of a hallway and let's say break it in 2 directions, I typically find that with the framing, you're within a quarter of an inch on either side of the house. I don't find as much stuff super out of square like I did in the houses that were built in the 60s and 70s. I would never trust them, but boy, they seem to be set up pretty well.
Yeah, I actually had one house down in the middle of the city, actually, and it was a brand new house built, and I don't know how this all started, but it started from the foundation pouring. From within a 33-foot distance, the house was out 6 inches. From the back of the house was wider 6 inches. Yeah. And I was trying to average the starting down the middle, and the contractor was telling me no. It took about a week before they realized that they built this whole house out like that. Right? Wow. just stuff like that. So I tend to want to stay away from stuff like that.
I had a customer start off the wall of a house, and of course he didn't realize it until he finished the entire floor. And they came to my shop, and I literally went out in the parking lot and kind of gave him a little seminar. And a few days later, I asked his wife how it went. He ripped it all out, got new wood, started over, off the wall, and did the exact same thing again.
Oh, wow.
And I go, "What are you buying now?" It was an oak floor. She's buying Santos mahogany. I go, "For what?" She goes, "Well, we're going to do the front 6 inches of the wall in that so people won't see it." And I can hear your silence. My head was exploding.
Yeah, it is silence.
What happened to we're going to snap a line and follow, literally, hey, come on, today you could snap that line over that front entry, leave the first few rows, go back, spline them and refill them if you're that concerned about, scribing the wall or whatever.
Yeah, lose it off in the wall where you're not going to notice it. But if you got it all down to, especially when you have those long straight hallways, you're going to see it.
Well, you said it too. You take a middle. You can go up a hallway, just take the middle of every point, pull a line down, and now you got a vantage point, and just kind of check with the front and the back of the house. But 6 inches, I've never even heard of that. That's crazy.
6 inches. It was 6 inches. I could not believe it because they had me rip out the first 200 feet I did, and then the contractor, he lined it up in a different area, and we started off there and ended up back where I started. And so, same thing, and he couldn't believe it.
Those Murphy kids are roughhousing again. Wow.
Hi, Wood Floor Pros. This is Kim Walgren, the longtime editor of Wood Floor Business. You can read the profiles of our 2022 Ultimate Wood Floor Guy and Gal in the December-January 2023 issue of Wood Floor Business. Our contest is sponsored by Lagler, and both of our ultimate winners won a trip to Lagler's Fly and Sand training at the Lagler headquarters in Germany. Do you think you or someone you know has what it takes to be our next ultimate wood floor guy or gal? Entries are already open for next year's contest. Go to woodfloorbusiness.com for more information.
Are you seeing anything up there in the way, supply chain issues, not just flooring, but engineered material, adhesives, polyurethanes?
Yeah, finishes is not so bad, but the raw material, the flooring itself, we're having a bit of issues with getting product on a timely manner. I think it has to do with a lot of the COVID restrictions, and we're just starting to get back to a little more normalcy in that area. There was a time here where we're waiting 12 weeks for products, right? And that's a long time. Puts a lot of people's projects behind.
Do you see anything slowing you up coming from countries like China and Russia? Ours, it's adhesives and engineered product.
Yeah, we do. We have it's a wait time, and right off the bat, that's one of the things we tell clients as they walk through the door. We ask them a few quick questions. What are you looking for? What's your timeline on your project? And then we give them like that project. I can tell you right now, they're 3 to 4 weeks out, or they are 6 to 8 weeks out, whichever way. But we educate them on that right now. So for the most part, most people coming, by the time they leave here, they have an idea that it's going to be that way. So they make arrangements now. Mm-hmm.
You've been around a while. So when you go out in the field, are you doing the estimating at the same time that you're kind of setting the job up mentally?
No, actually, we have a gentleman, Chris, here that does our estimates. And once he does the estimates, then I make an arrangement with the clients, and I go out and I meet with them specifically and just get a feel of what they want. Because I'm the guy that's going to be on the site. He's not there, right? Yep. So I read over his estimates. I look them over. I see what's there. Then I take them with me, and I go to the job site, and we go over it with the client and go from there, right? I like to be hands-on in all that aspect. That way, I feel like my experience in laying the floor out and starting it off and stuff like that, once I get that in the guy's head, this is where we want to be, then we're good. We like to make sure that, there's no surprises at the end. That's a killer right there, when a client's expecting a certain number and you come in astronomically out of that area, and it doesn't make for good business, right?
I saw a guy earlier this week. Somebody threw a price out, and I just wow, that is the I don't want to work for you price. That is, it was like if we get this, we're gonna eat like kings.
I actually had a client like that I did some work for her. This was before I came to Woodchuck. And I call her the cat lady. She actually used one room in the house as a litter box.
Oh, don't say it.
Bad. Oh. It was awful. It was awful. And then she called me back a couple of years later to finish that room, to do that room. And I went in the house and I literally could not put my tape measure to touch the floor.
Oh.
And I did give her one of those going away price.
Yes.
She accepted it.
That's what happens. Oh.
Well, after she accepted it, I gave her 9 months. It's my availability before I can get there.
You're gonna try everything to get out of it. Did you bite your own arm off to get out of there?
Well, she had to sell the house, right? So she couldn't wait for me, and I just didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Not after that.
You got 5 gallons of gas, lady? Here's a lighter. See ya. I'll tell you, you get some projects like that. What's the perfect project? I looked at one for a buddy of mine. I'm like, oh no, 1,600 feet on a Saturday and Sunday. I see 800 feet. I'm like, let's get a bunch of those. Wait, what's your comfort zone?
Those are great. Like for me, because I tend to like to work by myself. So if I'm sanding a floor, I like to do in between 500 and 800 feet by myself. That's fine.
Sure.
I don't like doing anything bigger, or I like to do staircases, stuff that I don't have to be there the whole time. I can run out and look at other jobs. Once I get into those bigger jobs, then I'm too dedicated. My time has to be there. Right. So for me at this point, anywhere between 500, 600, 700 is good, right? It's good for me to be at.
Yeah, I used to feel bad there. I'd have guys on a big project and you'd be like, wow, they just did 2,000 feet in an afternoon. And we're like at 7 something. And then I realized I'm never going to be that guy. I'm way too in control of each piece, each board. How does it look? And
yes, I
just can't bulk it. Now, you get me a straight row, I can nail just as fast as anybody, but I would still rather not top nail slip up. I've once stapled a board and my undone shoelaces into the floor and fell on my face.
Oh, wow.
So I like to slow it up a little bit. They loved that one.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you one myself.
Yeah, what do you got?
I was rolling on a finish. Actually, I was using the lamb's wool at this time, and there was a hair follicle just out of reach. And sure enough, I was trying to reach it with my pole. I ended up doing a somersault and landed on my back on the finish of the floor. Yeah, it was not pretty. Right? It's a good thing when I'm working, I keep my hair in a hat, because it would have been all done.
Oh, I had one of my guys vacuuming once, and somebody put the poly at the top of the stairs. He bumped into it. It was like a waterfall. It's just coming down the stairs, and like you said, step in it, slip in it. It's sticky. If I get poly on my hands, I will run out to the curb and roll my hands in dirt. It's just brutal, because I saw a guy one day. He made a delivery for us in a van, and he had a 5-gallon pail of 350 poly, and a guy cut him short, and he hit the brakes at this intersection, and he's like, "Who the hell left their drink in here?" And he's rubbing his neck, and he smells it. The 5-gallon pail hit the back of the chair and made a wave right over him, over his leather jacket that was hanging there, and it came down his back, his clothes. That would freak me out.
Yeah, that would freak me out, because how do you get that off now?
I had a customer get it in their eye, and we have a wash station. I didn't know what to tell him. What thinner? Don't put thinner in your eye. Water's going to harden it up. I didn't like it much. I thought thinner might be a nice idea. But It's environmentally friendly thinner. That stuff that looks like milk and then doesn't clean anything. Yeah, that'll do it. So I was going to ask you, when you said earlier about, you go set up a job, you walk through it with the guys, and you know the drill. Mm-hmm. You walk in. I've walked into a house and people go, "Oh, why don't you start here?" Well, no, because if I get to the other side of the house, it's going to be 40 feet of pulling under someone's radiators or appliances or something. So you can either, like you said, vantage point the middle, go in 2 directions, or maybe you start in the front entry, square it, backfill the door, so that when you enter the other side of the house, there's not that problem. Do you, once you've seen a job and you go start it, when you walk in the door, you've already dreamt where this thing's going, right? You've already got it figured out.
Exactly. That's the point of why I go there ahead of time, because I want to see the layout, see what's there, so that I can have an understanding of what I want to do. And I also want to reiterate that to the clients, because a lot of our homes that we do are lived in. Right. So sometimes we have to break up the job, and clients move their own furniture. So I tell them, listen, I need to have this half of the house on this day because we're going to start here and go that way. Because, not everybody wants to put their stuff in a pod or is capable of moving stuff out of the whole place. So we have to work with them, right?
Well, I was talking to somebody that we hired. He grew up in the flooring industry, young kid, and we all did. And I said to him, I was working with somebody in my family this weekend that doesn't do flooring, and they're an engineer. And they were like, why don't you go in the other room and work, and I'll work in here? And I was saying, oh boy, you don't understand flooring. Flooring is really, Clinton, there's two people that know what they're doing. If you and I started working in 5 minutes, we wouldn't even be speaking. You just would be working.
Yes.
If you're starting a wall, I'm finishing. If you see me on the left, you're on the right. If you see me go to make a cut, you might move down and finish a row off. And I worked with a kid that I'd never met in my life, and in 5 minutes, we weren't even talking. We're just rolling. And I couldn't explain to this kid. So I went in another room and I worked, and I saw him just struggling in there. And he's going one side of the room, the other side of the room. He starts a row, then finishes. And he goes to the saw and he cuts it. I said, now you know what? This is really, it's a two-man job. You can work by yourself. But don't you find that you two flooring people not only speak the same language, but they can almost think through each other's thoughts and the layout of the floor as they're moving?
Well, they should. They have to work in unison, right? You can't be. It's not a tug and war where I'm here and you're there. And particularly if I'm going to split up the guys, that's where I want to start down a hallway, and I can branch off into different rooms, right? Because then you can have your own room, and I can have my own room, or we can lay out the whole floor, and then I'm banging off in here, you're banging off in there, and we can progress that way. But if we start off on a big room, then we have to wait till we're through doorways and all that before we split up, right? So the layout and how you start the floor off and where you start the floor off, very, very important.
I just did one where it took me 3 hours to get the first boards in place. It took us 30 minutes to do the whole floor and an hour and a half to do the closeouts. It just depends what it is, and it's because it's just that critical. I'm not rushing, setting that first row, whatever it is.
Yes, exactly. My first row is very, very important to me. I tend to like having full boards when it comes up against the nosing. So I tend to, even if I don't start on the nosing itself, I do my math and figure out where I'm going to drop my line. So I can drop a line down the center, take a couple inch, take a measurement and move it over to the nosing and start off without the nosing there. If I need to, I prefer to have the nosing, but if I need to, I can do that and figure that out. So I always like to have a full board at the nosings, right? And I don't like cut boards there.
Yeah, you're like a tile guy. I do it all the time, especially, you get, let's say 2 1/4 strip, which is finally kind of tapering out and dying off. You get there and now you got, a 3/8 inch piece you got to rip down, and you're like, well, that's terrible. If you have wide plank, it's different, but you're right. Yeah. It's like a tile guy. Find out the dimension of the room, divide it by the width of the board, and split the difference, and come up with something better on the closeout or at the nosing or at the stairway. And isn't it? It's so much more difficult if you're working with pre-finished.
Yeah, it is. It's more difficult, but it's doable.
You're just like, man, I might have to chamfer the edge, and I did have to cut the finish. Exactly. It's the last thing that you want, but you do it. I don't like transition pieces. What's your feeling on T-moldings and reducers and thresholds and nosings? And
I don't like T-molds because I call them speed bumps.
Thank you. Yep.
They're speed bumps. On some types of flooring, I've found some flattened metals that I can use, like they're actually meant for tiles, but they work for hardwoods as well. Like a 3/4 T-mold that's underlaid, it's only about 1 inch wide. If I got to change, if I need to separate a floor, I'll use those. But when I'm using for myself personally, I like to make my own transition pieces out of the flooring.
Sure.
Yeah, because I just get more consistency with that. So,
do you guys do any pre-finish? What's your percentage we do in pre-finish flooring?
We do. Wow, we do a lot of. I was going to say about 70%, but we do a lot of sand on site finish.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people, it depends on the part of the country. You go down to Florida, and there are installers and there are sand and finish guys. If they do it all, they're from Jersey. Or New England.
Yeah.
Or New
Well,
York.
that's me.
Right?
That's me.
Yeah.
I like to do it all.
Me too. Same thing.
I like to do it from start to finish. I get a certain satisfaction out of it when I finish a job and I stand back and I look and I speak to the client and I say, "So, are you happy?" And they say, "Oh, I'm ecstatic." You know,
Right.
That's where I want to be. So I like to be able to say, "Yeah, I did that. I didn't just do that part, but I did that the whole thing." Right. So yeah, I like to be the whole package.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Well, I hear you. That makes sense. Yeah. Well, do you remember in your area? Are you now to the point where you're not going, did that one, that you're like, we were talking about this the other day in another podcast. A lot of flooring people, you'd be standing around a party and go, I think I did this 15 years ago. You've probably done a lot of work in that general area that you recognize.
Yes, I do. I get that all the time. I know. For some reason, I don't remember the address, but I remember the house. So once I'm in the house, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been here before. Oh yeah, yeah.
Have you ever been anywhere you got in trouble for looking at a floor? We're always looking, right? I get in trouble all the time wherever we are. It could be anywhere. I'm looking at some stupid floor.
Yeah, I get it from my wife all the time. You know, we were at a friend's place for dinner, and they just bought a new house, and they had a balcony on the second floor with a nosing hanging out. Where, you know, it was a pretty good sized nosing. It was probably about 15 feet in length. Well, you know, from one end to the other, the overhang, which should have been 1 inch, it actually went. It was probably about a quarter inch at the other end by the time they got there. And they didn't notice it. But I'm standing there looking at it, and I said something to my wife, and she just said, shut up.
Don't say anything,
Don't
Clinton.
say it. You know, like, shut up. And again, that happened because they didn't start properly, so they ended up pushing their nosing right up against it. It was a full board, so it wasn't necessary for it to be like that unless they started a different area. And then when they ended up there, they're like, "Oh, okay, we're just gonna do that."
Well, we did a job once, and a buddy of mine, I said, "Oh, we got a little bit of wood extra. We'll put out in the van or whatever." And he's just pointing up. I'm like, "What?" He's pointing up to the ceiling. I go, "What? It's 3 stories up." And I see light coming in, and he goes, "Go to the second floor and take a look." Up on like the third level, they put this. They framed a dormer in with a window. With no stairs, no, just a window. But they made a landing. They wanted us to go install 3 stories up at the base of this window where no human being will ever go with a nosing, and sand and finish it. And take the wood up a ladder. How many floor guys even own a ladder? And take it up there over your shoulder, install it, sand and finish it. As stupid as that was, about 4 years later, we got a call back to this house because they had a problem with the flooring. Where do you think it was, Clinton?
Up on the ladder?
She put a potted plant up there. She goes, I don't like it. I turned the wood. Like, that's why you shouldn't even have flooring up here. Well, so we wound up with the special price for that person. You never know. Yeah, we run into definitely some weird stuff. But you know what? I got to ask you a question. I'll tell you two mistakes I made in my life. And listen, I'm a little older than you. You've been doing this a while, but I'm going to share this with you. 2 things I did in my life I would never do again. Hardwood flooring and soccer at the same time. I played and coached soccer for 35 years and also did flooring. I'm not sure which one crippled me. So I'm pretty sure you do both too, don't you?
Yes, I do.
How do you handle it?
And I still do.
I just finally had to quit for the first time.
I still do. I played just this Sunday this Sunday morning. And believe it or not, my game on Sunday was 9:30 in the morning. Right? So,
you in the OTL? You in the Old Timers League?
Yes, I am. 50 and up. Right?
Woo! Yep. That's when I bailed.
Yeah, I stopped playing with the young kids because they all seem to think that they're gonna go somewhere, and I still have a job. Right? So,
when you're 53 and you brag to your wife that on a Sunday morning you got a red card in a 50s game, yeah.
Hopefully the guys are all on the same page as myself. My team's a pretty good team with our conduct on the pitch. So, you know, we don't instigate anything. We tend to want to we're peacemakers.
Yeah, not like flooring where the brawls break out on a regular basis.
Oh yeah, because when we're doing flooring, we cannot have anybody else in the house.
No.
We don't cooperate that way.
Don't you love being the one and only contractor on the site that can kick anybody out when you feel
Anybody
like it?
else,
Absolutely.
yeah.
We get big high rises in these big luxury places, and the concierge are like, you can take it up the back 14 levels of stairs. And I'm like, no, we're going to use this elevator that you're going to pad. And they'd be like, no, we can't do that. And there's another truck waiting. And I would be like, this is my favorite. We're going to tell, all right, how about I call, Mrs. A in unit 345 and tell her she's not getting her custom imported Brazilian cherry herringbone today because you said you don't want them to use the elevator. What should you pay a month for that thing? Boom. Mm-hmm. Padding goes up. Two-wheelers come out. People are ready to help. Listen, it's flooring. Step aside. We're coming in.
We're just going to do our job. We're not going to damage your elevator. And that's something that I do as well, too, is I don't do it myself personally, but I make sure that the clients reserve the elevators for us.
Yes.
So when we get there, and the thing about it is I always deliver product at minimum 72 hours prior.
Right.
That's my go-to is a minimum 72 hours prior. And we keep our humidity control pretty good here at the shop. So by the time it gets there, it's between 7 and 9% humidity our wood, so it's installable at that time. But just to keep everybody on the up and up, 3 days is on climatization with proper humidity. We do that.
That's textbook perfect. But that's what I always did. I love it. You go to court or you get into an argument or something, and everybody always goes overboard. They'll say, "Oh, Your Honor, we had that flooring in there for 3.5 years." Like they'll think of any crazy number. 72 hours. Like what if after 72 hours it's there and it's humid and sticky and rainy and the basement floods? It is textbook 72 hours under living conditions. We call it 70-40. 70 degrees, 40% relative humidity, anywhere in that little, 35 to 55, et cetera. And you know what? If you don't have a meter, all right, don't check the wood. Get a ruler or get a tape measure. If you ordered 4-inch, it should be dead on 4-inch, every piece. Yeah. Whatever you purchased. And then if it's flat, even, square, it should be perfectly fine for what you're doing. But check the moisture. How do you do these jobs today and not have a moisture meter on you?
I've had a moisture meter. Like I said, I've been at Woodchuck here for 13 years. I bought my moisture meter from Woodchuck Flooring when I first came. My first Wagner moisture meter that I had, it's got to be over 20 years old, right?
You still got a keep on truck and bumper sticker on that meter?
No, you know what? I like that little Wagner myself. It's just gives me a little sense
of...
The
yellow MMC 220?
Yes, exactly.
I have 6 of them. That's still one of my favorites. Well, listen, I get it. I'm going to give you 4 rapid fire questions. You can answer them quick and throw them out there, and I will let you escape my clutches. Are you ready, sir?
Sir, yes.
All right. What's your biggest flooring pet peeve? What ticks you off?
My biggest flooring pet peeve is not having the proper equipment.
All right. If you weren't in the wood flooring industry, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't in the wood flooring business, I'd probably be a cop.
The last question, tell me the truth. In your home, carpeting anywhere? You got carpeting?
No.
Good for you.
None.
All right. Tim can keep you. You can stay at Woodchuck. Hey, Clinton Duff, Woodchuck Flooring, Toronto, Canada. I really, really appreciate you taking time to chat with me. And by the way, congratulations on Ultimate Floor Guy of the Year. That's so cool. I want one of those.
Yeah, well, you should have one.
Can I borrow yours, take a picture of it, and just tell my friends, and you keep it quiet between us?
Not a problem. Woo! Anything for you, Steve. Anything.
You are the man. Hey, thank you, and thank you to Tim and the people at Woodchuck. It's great always chatting with you. I
appreciate this whole experience that's happening right now. It's overwhelming, but it's great.
Well, listen, you're a good guy, and you're a really good representative of what we do in the trades. And I really appreciate your time. We will talk again soon, buddy.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care now. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you to Legler for sponsoring our 2022 Ultimate Wood Floor Guy and Gal Contest. Don't forget to read the December-January 2023 issue of Wood Floor Business for their profiles, plus articles on how to bend wood, run a business while prioritizing your family, and much more. If you don't get WFB, make sure you sign up for your free subscription at woodfloorbusiness.com, where you can also find all of our digital issues as well. If you liked this episode, please be sure you rate, review, and share this podcast. Thanks for listening.